ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהכל נהיה בדברו. The French say, le plus que ça change, le plus que c'est le même. There is change, but it remains the same. The more it changes, it still stays the same, because there are certain things that are really permanent, have sort of semi-absolute value. And I have spoken already about this in the past, I am sure, but it keeps on recurring in my mind. You know, to observe the Shabbat is mentioned basically twice in the Torah, in the Ten Commandments. There are other mentions of Shabbat, of course, also. However, the most important are the two in the Ten Commandments. It says, Zachor et Yom HaShabbat lekadsho, remember to sanctify the Sabbath day. And toward the end of the Torah, when the Ten Commandments are repeated, it says, Shamor et Yom HaShabbat. You have to watch over the Sabbath day. So our rabbis say, how do you fulfill these two instructions? They say Zachor means make Kiddush. Friday night, you over a cup of wine, you say God created the world in 6 days, and He ordered us, instructed us to rest on the seventh day. That's why we have to fulfill that. And how do we fulfill Shamor, watch over the Sabbath day? By refraining from doing work. The problem is, how do you define work? Does work mean that you have to sweat? And if you don't sweat, it isn't really work? Does it mean it has to be from 8 to 5? What is the definition of work? So our rabbis say, in the Torah, there is a commandment to build the tabernacle, the Mishkan, in the desert. But right next to the command, it says you have to keep the Sabbath. So we learn, our rabbis say, that whatever was necessary in the building of the Mishkan, that is what is called melacha. And that is why the two are together. And also to tell us something, you are not allowed to violate the Sabbath, the Shabbat, in order even to build the Mishkan. The Mishkan is a holy place, but it doesn't supersede Shabbat. So what is forbidden on Shabbat? For instance, the Mishkan had walls that were made out of cloth. You're not allowed to make cloth on Shabbat. It had pieces of wood that had to be cut to certain measures. You're not allowed to cut on Shabbat, and so on. There are 39 such categories, according to our rabbis, that were necessary in the building of the Mishkan, and therefore are forbidden to do in Shabbat. But here we have two concepts that are really different. The Mishkan is space. It is something material. You can touch it. Shabbat is something different. It's time. One is sanctification of a place. The other one is sanctification of time. There are many differences, of course. My home is the same today as it was yesterday, and it probably will be the same tomorrow. How about the day? Is today the same as yesterday? Will it be the same as tomorrow? It depends what I do with it. Another thing, my house stays there, but time passes away. So in a sense, we have to bear in mind that every moment that you don't do something, that moment is lost. It doesn't come back again. And something else, which is very important, you know. How big is your home? I remember when I once visited Cuba, I had a meeting with Fidel Castro. One of the questions he asked me, how big is your apartment? I mentioned a certain number of square feet. And he said, what do you need such a big apartment? Because they measured what is the minimum need of people in order to build homes for the poor in Cuba. Maybe my house is bigger than yours. Yours is smaller than your neighbor's. You know, not everybody has the same size house. But what about time? Time is very democratic. I have the same 24 hours in every day as you do, as your neighbor has. Everybody has the same 24 hours in a day. Everybody has 365 days in a year. But we don't all utilize time the same way. Some of us don't take advantage of every hour. Do you tell your wife you love her every day? Are you attentive to what your children are doing? Are you bettering yourself every day? Or do you just let time pass by, pass over you, and every day is basically the same as another day? Make sure since the day is the same for everybody, that you take advantage of every day to the best of your abilities. Because while your house will remain the same tomorrow, that is, the space in your house will be the same, the day will be totally different. Make sure that you take advantage of every hour, of every day, because every day that passes really doesn't come back.